Hello, I'm MPX Toycat and welcome back to an episode of my Minecraft Xbox Update Adventures Let's Play. And you know what, the time has come again where we're starting a brand new survival project. This is one that you might have seen a little bit of during the course of live streams, but it's something I wanted to show off right here because it's a really fun one that I just came up with randomly while I was working on something else entirely, and it's really stuck with me ever since because I love placing ice. I have boats that are going to be used today, I have a lot of packed ice I'm going to be using today, can you tell looking at my inventory? But the weird thing about this project is it's going to be involving placing a lot of that ice and using my boat, except in the Nether, because boats are, weirdly enough, in Minecraft, one of the weirdest transitions from the last 5 years, I'd say, is that boats went from being one of the more useless things that arguably didn't even have much for use on the water, and especially with the advent of swimming, don't have any use in the water. They went from being that to being the best form of transport in Minecraft. Flying in Minecraft, even with firework rockets behind you, like literally doing this right here, this seems like it's pretty good and it goes somewhat fast, but it's wasteful on your elytra and it's wasteful on the fireworks, and even with both those things combined, it's still slower than using a boat on some ice, or at least on packed ice or blue ice. And that to me kind of indicates the fact that boats on ice, they're pretty darn fast. They even introduced 2 new types of ice to make them even faster, and therefore for some reason Minecraft likes boats being the fastest form of transport, or they're going to introduce something faster soon, and that's why I'm working on this right here. It's going to be an entire brand new part of my Nether, which is going to be made out of ice instead. The reason I'm making out of ice might seem kind of silly on the surface, but it really does come down to the fact that, like, oh yeah, so I have my little ice islands, and the Nether portal in these ice islands directly, as you might imagine, oh, it's actually tricky to get over to it because I've sealed out mostly, but the, let's just place a block over here, and then an extra block over here. But the portal on these islands, if I can do this correctly, links directly to this area. And I think it would be kind of cool if the ice islands weren't just a weird part of a ocean, but instead they could expand into the Nether. And that's why I've done this, which as you can see, is an ice fortress above the ice islands. And that's what we're going to be expanding in today's video, because I want to expand the fortress to cover pretty much everywhere this fortress does, but just, above it, with entrances up and above it, down into it, etc. It should be all accessible by a boat, so it's via boat, I should say, which is why it's all on the same layer, which means we've even managed to get something cool happening here. We've got the boat going through the portal without even stopping for a second, which, I don't know, personally I like that, because, even when we're, like, midway through the portal, because we're in a boat, it doesn't do anything. Isn't there something fascinating about this, like hanging out in a portal? But yeah, basically we're working on a lot of things today, and the big one is placing a lot of packed ice. So join me on my adventure while we talk about whatever has been going on the past week as well, because that's something a lot of people like the Let's Play as a source of. Like, so what's been going on in the Toycat world? A lot of this channel is very, very focused on the tips themselves, but a lot of people then ask, like, but what about you, Toycat? And it's kind of an interesting, distinction to make on YouTube, that there are lots of channels that are very, very focused on people. I'd say, honestly, those are the more successful channels, especially, in modern YouTube. Like, if you focus on the person that you are, if you focus on the personalities behind a thing, it's much more interesting than just the subject itself. And that seems weird on the surface, because, like, wait, aren't people here to learn for a thing? Because it's the interesting ideas and the interesting concepts that make people click on videos, but it's the interesting people behind them that make them stay around. It's something I've always found weird to balance, and that seems counterintuitive, but is always backed up by the facts. If you look at any of the biggest, YouTubers out there, in fact, the very biggest YouTuber out there, like a PewDiePie, you're like, are you subscribed for, there is content that he is famous for, most of which is actually different to the current brand, but the reason that the channel is the most subscribed on YouTube is because people are interested in the person as a whole, not just the thing that is being put out there. Also, I think we're actually going to move to the right here. We're going to remove a few blocks over here, and we're going to go through this little thing right here, which involves breaking a lot of netherrack, and we're going to end up with a lot of that, which is useful for any future end pathways we plan or something along those lines. But yeah, we're going to be destroying a lot of netherrack in today's video. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I want to talk about one. I want to respond to, like, last week where we spoke a sizable amount, I'd say, about socialization and stuff like that. But also, I want to talk about a big move I'm making this week, because I mean, actually, quite physically, I'm moving for a couple of weeks, which to me is like an intense amount of time, to America. So, my physical location will be different for the next 2 Let's Plays, I think. That's going to be a fun move, in my opinion, that I want to talk about a bit, because it's going to change some things on the channel. And just in general, I've started a new project I'm super hyped about, things are going fun for me, and I personally quite like that. So let's talk about all the things and more with this video, because you know what? If we're not going to talk about things, then why are we even talking? Which actually, you know, if more people thought that way, the world would be a place that I'd enjoy living in a lot more. That's for sure. But anyway, so first of all, I want to kind of clarify before anything else. Like, yes, as always, the project we're working on seems wacky on the surface, and probably is wacky even below the surface. But to me, that's what makes the project fun. So I want that to be out of the way. Like, you know, we can criticize this. We'll talk more about this later. We're gonna dive right back into it. But also, I want to mention that like this past week has been something of like, I would say I had like one of my biggest like struggles in it. I mentioned this a lot, but like having a moment with which everything, you know, when things go really badly, it seems by itself like it's bad, and you know that's it's quite obvious why we assume that when things are going bad, they're going bad. It makes sense why we assume that, but to me, I always see it like partially as an opportunity as well. Like when things are, you know, everything works in cycles. Like when there are sometimes you need to have destructive cycles to have non-destructive cycles afterwards. At least, you know, personally, that's how my life's always gone. And yeah, so basically, kind of on the channel, I've kind of like, okay, let's remove that lava right there. I've kind of had to, you know, like kind of redo some stuff, but in the end, it's gonna make for more enjoyable stuff. I came up with a new realm idea that I think people are gonna like whenever it happens, and you know that sort of stuff only comes about because of the destruction, if you want to call it. If you want to give it like a nice dramatic title, and you better believe I do, then that stuff has only been possible because of the destruction that went on. You know, to rebuild things, you need to take apart existing things. Which is, if you think about it, like that sounds like craziness on the surface. Like it sounds like it's just a way to justify bad things happening. Like, well, of course you're just saying that, you know, because people like to justify everything bad that's happened to you. You'd like to believe that it was necessary. It wasn't just the universe being cruel. Everyone's going to have that kind of opinion in some way. But to, you know, in case you think like, that's kind of crazy hippie stuff or something, Toycat, think about it this way, right? Minecraft is literally a game where you go around breaking stuff. I just broke all this netherrack right here as part of my project that I can then place somewhere else. All of this packed ice. Where do you think I got? An inventory full. I've got even more, by the way. Also, want to mention, wearing a Top of Undying today because we're in the Nether. Things can get scary. If you see me streaming most of the time, probably going to be using a Top of Undying because it gets scary in here. But yeah, like Minecraft is a game all about that concept of destruction and reconstruction and so on and so forth. It's literally the very point of Minecraft. You can't get resources for the most part without breaking them from somewhere else. It's a very, very unique game. And in some ways that make you... Oh, did you see that? What just happened there? Should we question it some more? Nah, let's just ignore it and hope that everything's fine. As all, you know, good therapists, doctors, and parents will tell you. But yeah, basically, that's a thing that is very much a thing that is the point of the game. So maybe that's where my outlook comes from. But it's something I wanted to mention because the thing that's been on my mind a lot this week has been, you know. So first of all, I've had to change a lot of routines that I'm gonna have to change again because I'm going to the West Coast of America for a couple of weeks. It's going to be interesting. I've never spent more than like a week in America, and even a week I think I've spent maybe once, maybe twice. I'm not even sure if I've spent that once, actually. I'd have to check. But basically, I've never spent more than a week in America at one time. So it's going to be really interesting to spend a significant amount of time all at once in America. I want to see how that goes, how I feel about it at the end, because I love my visits to the US right now. But, you know, they're always in small concentrated doses. And small concentrated doses of anything are always going to feel different to large extreme concentrations, as again, I think that for obvious reasons, probably also. But yeah, I want to see how that kind of feels at the end of that. So yeah, videos over the next week, starting with like maybe a few after this one, because obviously I've prepared a few to allow me to set up my transition, etc. But videos and streams over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of Let's Plays, will be from San Francisco. I don't mind sharing the city. You know, just don't come find me in the street and we'll be good. And yeah, basically one of the things that I've found over this past week, because I dove into, because you know, to bring it back to like the personality over the thing, even though that sounds like a weird technique to success. Like, it seems weird that you need to have a personality behind a thing that, you know, a cool thing can stand by itself. I don't think it is true by itself, and The best example of that is like I got into climbing recently. I mentioned it a couple of times here and there. I don't want to talk about it too many times because you know either you think it's cool or you think you're not. Stop mentioning your stupid hobby. Like we get it. You care about a thing. You know what? You shouldn't care about things though because the universe is all gonna end one day anyway, right? So yeah. Anyway, so basically you know, I got really into climbing recently, like the idea, like, I guess it's called bouldering if you do it indoors, but like rock climbing, but without a harness, or without, you know, like, basically, when you fall, which to me is way cooler than the idea of like, oh yeah, when you fall, nothing really happens, it's just a sport about this, that. I think obviously it makes sense to have safety in a lot of things, but when that safety defeats the point of failure, is it even safety or is it just defeating the point of the whole thing? That's always been my kind of take on it, as silly as you might think that is. And I hear a ghast somewhere. Did you hear that, like, little cat noise? I heard it, and that, to me, implies the danger is coming. But, yeah, so basically I got really into climbing, and the person I went climbing with has been like, oh yeah, I've been watching all these videos. In fact, everyone I've been climbing with is always like diving into videos of it. Like, it's fun. That's actually how people get into like new hobbies now. It's like, well, there's this thing I'd like to know more about. Type it right into YouTube. Like, as a YouTuber, that's probably a good thing to know about. But basically, everyone I knew got into it, and I just wasn't. Like, I was like, you know, I'd just rather learn by doing. Until I learned about a guy who, his name is like Anux Honnold or something. He climbed a 3,000 foot, so 1,000 meters, I guess that'd be, cliff. Like, it's taller than any building in the world, with no ropes, just like went up the whole thing. It's one of the harder cliffs to climb, even with a rope. And he did it with nothing. If he fell, he legit would have died. And there's a lot of like cool pictures of it. But the reason I mentioned him is because like I find that dude interesting, and like him, I didn't want to look up how you climb rocks, but as he explains it, I'm like, yeah, that is interesting. And then I realized that's the exact same thing that happened. You know, like it's the same thing I was mentioning where like, oh yeah, being a person is important not just for yourself for the sake of some form of brand, this, that, but also for the sake of getting more people into whatever it is you're passionate about. Your things matter more when you have a person behind them. I'm sure, you know, the reason Bill Gates is a way more likable and out there CEO than, you know, Jeff Bezos, who's actually richer than him. It's not because of the wealth or because of this. It's because he's a person who goes out there, does the interviews of some form. And, you know something about him. Same Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is a lovable billionaire because, you know, he eats at McDonald's most days using a coupon because he wants to save the money to invest or whatever. You know, he's wacky, but he's interesting. Whereas, you know, probably don't know so much about Jeff Bezos. In fact, if you do know about it, it's something about how he makes his workers pee in bottles or whatever the allegation is, and you're like, yep, don't like that guy so much. Because people gravitate towards people more than I think we care to admit. And it's interesting to see that happen in that way. That I learned a bunch of stuff about climbing, not because I looked for it. In fact, specifically the opposite. I was very much not looking for it. But then it came out and I was like, you know, actually, sure then. Let's learn this or that about the climbing thing. And I found that to be a compelling experience. I thought that was a very fun thing to realize in that way, I guess I should say. So yeah, basically I got really into free climbing. Into rock climbing. I've been learning about it a whole bunch, and it made me realize something also, because this has always been in my head, but I don't really talk about it too much. But I really want to say it here, where it might help some people, because the people who watch these videos, you know, who care about the world and like watching every week, even though I think statistically it's going to be fewer people. Man, why did you even spawn in the Nether? What even was the point of that? But even though it's statistically going to be fewer people, and even though from those statistically fewer, you know, like by the numbers, it seems like it makes less sense. But the thing I always thought is like people care more, you know? Like, it's hard to quantify caring, so generally speaking, I don't mind sharing things with you, and I feel like you're the sort of people like, oh yeah, you're cool. You're the sort of people I'd like to help out in some way, beyond what is necessary, or beyond what's even necessarily going to help me in any way. But this is one of the most, like, crucial things that I've learned over time. It's, like, instinctively in me, but the reasons why don't make sense. And it's like, I think giving yourself a label, if that label is climber or this or that, is something people should do way more carefully than they do right now. I feel like one of the things that is just instinctual into most people is like, oh, so I didn't pick up packed ice. I went all the way back. I dropped off my stuff, but I didn't pick up more. What a mess up. Also, notice how I'm flying back instead of using my boat. Maybe we should do that next time. Where is my boat? I guess it's in there. You know, we'll just use the boat next time. I'm sure I just took the boat here and then... Where is the boat? You know, I had it, I missed it, and now I quite literally miss it. But anyway, let's... whole different point, right? But, yeah, I have literally lost my boat. And on... Okay, here we go. You know, we'll ride it all the way out onto the ice. Look how fun and scary this is. I literally will fall off the ice into lava if I mess up. Isn't that beautiful? Kind of goes back into why I think climbing is a cool sport. But yeah, I feel like people are really fast to attach labels to themselves in a way that's like cool in a certain social aspect. Like, oh yeah, so you can work out what people are about easier. Like, if someone describes themselves as a clown, then you know, oh, I like clowns, I like this person. If someone describes themselves as a Minecrafter, you know they like Minecraft. But I feel like even though I definitely like Minecraft a lot, and you can feel free to call me a Minecrafter if you like, I feel like these sorts of terms, you know, both actually on a career level, but also on a personal level, don't really make sense to use on yourself. I feel like people do it all the time. People call themselves all sorts of things all the time. But I can never really work out why. I can never work out what, you know, beyond just like the ability to belong to something. Like, for instance, if you look at the people who call themselves a gamer, you know, I play games. Quite a lot, actually. You probably play games too. You might consider that to mean you are a gamer, right? But the terms themselves, the words, the terminology, they're like tainted words. It's a very when you hear those words, you're like, oh no, you're a gamer. It's a whole thing. Like it's a tainted set of ideals, and therefore, when someone hears that you describe yourself as that, they're not thinking of all the like. They're not. It doesn't just mean to someone like, oh yeah, this person's a gamer. They play video games. They might have played Stardew Valley. We can talk about that. You're like, oh, it's one of those, right? And I think about this a lot as to like why that's like an instinct inside of everyone. Why that is a thing. Because I definitely do think that the attaching a label to yourself, unless that, we should be much more cautious about doing so, unless it is a thing that literally defines us or something in some way. And the reason I believe that is because we are, as humans, we're defined as a lot of things. If we take the comment section of my last video, for instance, or like we're defined by, we try to define ourselves by extremism, even though most of us aren't extreme in some way. And to take an example of that, how about we look at the comment section of the last video? I said something like, I socialize 3 times this week, guys. Like, basically, I said something along those lines. And then the response from a lot of people was something along the lines of, like, most people who left a response, because I said, like, how many times do you socialize? Is that a lot? Is that a little? Give me a feel for actual humans. Like, give me a survey, internet. And this is the interesting thing about people who chose to respond. People who went out of their way to mention that as a thing. Most of them said, oh yeah, I go out literally 3 times a year. Or like, oh yeah, I'm lucky if I do that in a month. Or like, haha, as someone who never hangs out, that's a terrifying idea. And I don't doubt that those people are real. I don't doubt that those people are telling the truth. But you see why that makes it a really bad thing to study, right? You can see why immediately... Also, we have to destroy these blocks right here. You can see why immediately after hearing that, it's like, oh, this is why this is unreliable. Because the sorts of people, like, in the same way some people over-exaggerate their socialness, and they're the people who are loudest about it, and therefore you assume they're the standard. You see that on the lower end of the spectrum too, especially on the internet. Like, there's a big movement of people being like, haha, never hang out with anyone, right? Even though that's clearly not the average either. Like, you can see it on, and that's what I kind of mean here. Like, we don't just get people who over-exaggerate positively. We end up with a world where everyone is an exaggerated cartoon version of themselves almost. And that's why when you describe yourselves as a gamer, people don't think of someone who just plays a video game. If you call yourself a Minecrafter, you're not just someone who plays Minecraft as a game. You're someone who loves it so much that you've used it as part of your identity under which you define yourself. And that, as wacky as it sounds, as stupid as it is, as much as it shouldn't be the case, right? It is a thing that it just seems to... Okay, let's line this up perfectly. As wacky as it sounds, it is the way that people interpret it, and the way people use the information that you give them. And basically, yeah, terms that we use to describe ourselves as, you know, are you a steak lover? See, you imagine a steak lover. It's not someone who loves steaks. It's someone who likes steaks so much that they decided that term needs to describe them forever. And I think the reason for this, because I've always known in my head, like, I try not to label myself with most things. Like, even in school, people are desperate to be like, oh yeah, I'm a emo, I'm a scene kid, I'm a this, I'm a that. Like, people, the only label that I noticed most people didn't want to give themselves was like chav or something along those lines in my school. But you know, actually, you know, if you're not from the UK, let me teach you the word chav right now. Wow, isn't that a fun one? I guess it'd be like roughly analogous to jock, but we just don't have many sports, and like we don't idolize sports as much as America, so that's a thing. But also like lower class, whereas I feel like jocks are usually from rich families. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe you can be a jock and from a poor family. You know, let me know in the comments down below about your high school stereotypes, internet. But also, yeah, I have to be really careful about fire and ice, because ice actually can melt, unlike packed ice, which is why usually you wouldn't be placing so haphazardly like this. But also, I think the ice block literally did melt. I think he literally managed to get rid of it. I didn't know that was a thing blazers could do. Oh, also, we really need to make sure that our ice doesn't get set on fire. Which is a silly phrase that you shouldn't be able to say. Minecraft, am I right? Minecraft, am I right? But yeah, I feel like I've been thinking a lot about how like a label is a thing that you apply to yourself, and then people tend rarely to associate with the good parts of it, but instead focus on mostly the negative parts. This is a thing that happens with whole countries. You know when you picture like a British person, or a Chinese, you don't picture a Scottish person, even though that's included in the label, and even though that's maybe a more contentious one. You know, like there is a person you imagine when you hear the term British person. You know, as silly or as not silly as whatever you want to believe that is. That is how our brains work, right? We have an extreme stereotype of what that is. When you hear Minecraft YouTuber, you picture, probably, I mean, at least, you know, one of those YouTubers is like, hey, what even is that? That's my Minecraft YouTuber impersonation. I'm doing a silly voice, that you guys laughing. You know the YouTubers, like, you know, that's everyone. There is a YouTuber like that in everyone's life that you've met at some point. Not that they're bad or good, but that's how you appeal to children. That's the market, which at one point was the most lucrative for Minecraft YouTubers. These days, I don't know how they're dealing with like the whole copper YouTube thing, or like what the general thing is with child-friendly YouTubers. Again, I sadly I've been you know, kind of focused on a lot of other stuff in the meantime. But like it's you know, being very there is a certain stereotype you picture, and then you paint everything with that same super broad brush. And whether that's good or bad, I think it definitely is a bad thing, right? The thing that is definitely true about it is that it's a thing that we do not because it's like, I don't think it's even representative, but because if someone defines themselves as a label, they're okay with taking all the good and the bad of it. But that's not what we should probably do as humans. And this is why, if you're passionate about something, yeah, make it a thing that defines you. But when you make something a thing that defines you, when you define yourself by something, rather, that thing then becomes something that defines you. If you define yourself as a climber, then suddenly you are defined as a climber. That is you. If you define yourself as a this, then to a lot of people, that's all they're going to know about you, that you are one of the people in that category of people. And as silly as that sounds, as like kind of broad and esoteric and crazy as all of that sounds, it is totally what we do all the time with all the things. When, you know, you can take a label, I guess in politics you see this a lot, right? Like, oh yeah, you believe that. It's like, well, I mean, actually, there's only like really 2 labels you can give yourself. And, you know, to believe that everyone on one label believes one thing, or is, you know, bad for whatever reasons you want to give them, or lazy, or whatever, like blah 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 you want to assign to a thing. It's like, well, that's not how it's going to work in the slightest, right? If you assume that everything within a certain label means something, it's the equivalent of like what I like to think of it as like, it's like racism, right? Like if you assume that an entire, literally a whole race of people, just based on you know, the color of their skin and the origin at some point of their ancestors are a thing, that's ridiculous, right? Unless it's something that is literally based on, You know, like, I don't know, you could probably assume that more heat is absorbed into darker skin colors because that's how sunlight works. Maybe, you know, unless it's something on that level of, like, observation, you know, you're making... That's why it's racist, right? That's what we assume people are doing. But we do that all the time, not with races and not with, you know, colors of skin or religions, but we do it all the time with ideas. If you are a banker, you are rich because you work in some giant bank doing some task that we don't really know the hang of, but that they pay a lot of money for because it moves a lot of money around. If you work at McDonald's, McDonald's shop, so bad, am I right? But like, these are ridiculous, over the top, you know, simplifications. Because like, one, I mean, like, you know, working at McDonald's, it's a job. Minimum wage is pretty high, at least in my country, and you know, even in a country where they're pretty low, like even if you're getting paid like a ludicrously low amount, the fact that you're being paid that per hour, and like if you're young, it's still very good. But even, you know, excluding those things, and we just be like, okay, ignore the things. You can work at McDonald's as a manager and be like managing, you know, dozens or hundreds of people. And given that actually right now there is like a shortage of fast food managers, like people willing to. But partly because of the reputation and partly because of the high stress, like, it's a hard job that people don't want to be seen doing. Kind of, I guess, like, waste collection. Fun fact, this varies a lot, so I can't guarantee your location. You probably can be paid relatively, you know, well, compared to the minimums and the average for working. In the UK, we call them bin men. I don't know if that's a worldwide... I guess it wouldn't be bin men. A trash man? Yeah, I guess a trash man would be the Americanization of that. You know, I'm in America for 2 weeks. I've got to learn these things. Got to learn if I've got to tip my trash man, because you're not tipping culture in America, am I right? Never going to not complain about that. But, yeah, basically, we make these broad generalizations all the time, and you can stop doing it yourself, or you can try your best to, even though I think it's you know, you can hold it down, but it's always going to be happening. Like, there's so many bad ones that I wish I didn't make that I make all the time. Like, I make a lot of generalizations about people and things that I wish I don't, but that I make anyway. But yeah, it's not. But the only way to shield yourself from, you know, other people doing it to you, is to be very careful about what you define yourself as or with, and that's why I think, you know, what is leading to. Oh, that probably is part of it. Let's destroy these and let's see if they melt by themselves. Is there something inherent about the light level there that's just too high? Or is it just being fireballed by gas? Because I have to imagine it's the latter, but I can't be too sure. Also, let's see where the next one of these goes along. Is there any down there? There is not. So there's no ice on these walls. Oh, actually, we'll just have a giant ice wall here anyway. Just for the visuals of it. Gotta have a break in your build structure sometimes. Just for fun. Just for fun. But, yeah, the only way to shield yourself from that happening to other people's is to be very careful about what groups you join. Any large group gets a lot of, like, negative rap. Like, even something that, I don't know, like, something everyone broadly agrees on, right? I don't know. Like, that the rights of, you know, both genders should be equal in lots of ways. And the movement was called feminism. Okay, that's fine if you want to call it that. And then, you know, right now, some of you are like, yeah, I'm that. And some of you are like, oh, no. And the fact that that is true, the fact that there is toxicity to even the most benevolent of movements is, or, you know, or you might not think it's benevolent because of those stereotypes, right? And, you know, that's why I would personally never in a video be defining myself as one, because I don't want to be associated with said ridiculous, over-the-top, not fair or just stereotypes. But the fact that it's a thing that you can even think about proves to me that, like, you should be cautious about what labels you define yourself as. And yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say right here. Being able to... Wait, are these gaps for ice? Is the ice being destroyed? I wonder how the blazes are destroying ice. Like, I really didn't know blazes... No, it's destroying without them. No blaze destroyed. What is leading to that? Let's go look. There is some magic hokey pokey going on. Is there lava down below it? Is the light level too high? Is it just that there are blazes nearby? Can blazes melt things by existing in the vicinity of them? But all the blazes are down there because, you know, logic doesn't exist in the Nether. I want to know what the deal with all of this is. Also, I guess I want to build like a pathway up there at some point, but you know, one step at a time. Working on a project like this, by the way, it always seems like the amount of progress you make, like it should be so easy to do like just a lot of ice. But when you're trying to repeat a pattern and when you're trying to also do it delicately, and when you're trying to work out why random blocks are going missing, these things can be kind of hard, is what I'm trying to say. These things can be kind of hard. Also, oh no, that was actually the correct place. I was questioning like, that's not the right place for it. It totally was. My bad. So yeah, anyway, to finish my point here, I feel like, well, all I've said so far is like, oh yeah, labels bad, don't use them. But I also want to talk about, because whenever I talk about a thing, I try my best to also talk about, but why is that thing in existence? A lot of people in a lot of places just go, thing is bad, shouldn't do thing. But that's the sort, oh, okay, we looked at the ghasts, at the blazes, and now they want revenge for my looks, apparently. But a lot of people just, a lot of, especially outlets and places, they take pride in doing that smoke thing of like, oh, this thing is bad, didn't you know? And it's like, well, most people aren't encouraged by thing is bad and you're doing the thing, you bad person. Because, you know, like, then it comes to the question of like, why did these things evolve? It's innate in some human... Every single bad thing in the world today evolved through some amount of innate human behavior. And if we don't learn what the innate human behavior behind any bad thing is, we're likely to repeat it, right? Like, I don't know, kind of like I was talking about... Like, I guess you could raise this as any example, but like, you know, people go to prison and we go, you know what we'll do? We'll lock them up somewhere. But if we don't know why they're doing it, we can't stop the next person from committing the same crime. I actually had a big crime committed against my local shop this week. Someone went in there, apparently stole a lot of, I guess, a lot of everything. And it was like, oh yeah, that is interesting. That, yeah, think about how there's nothing really stopping you from doing that besides just society. There are lots of things we can do. There's lots of bad things that anyone can do that we don't do. And there's lots of bad things that you really can't do that, you know, we figure we can't do. But you totally can all the time, and that happens all the time, and I find that interesting. So the thing I took from this, also, all the sounds today have made sense to me, but that like getting hurt sounded weird. Is this true for everyone else too? Is everyone getting weird audio? Because I fixed it last week and then it kind of came back. But anyway, leaving my diagnosis issues aside, something I kind of I wonder about, and the reason I think all of this happens is because in the day and age before we had the internet, because I can communicate to you from statistically, most of you live thousands of miles away from me. A distance we wouldn't be able to talk from, you know, hundreds of years ago. I mentioned this in a stream, but think about the fact that the phrase, where are you, didn't need to be said because you could see everyone you were talking to, or at least you could hear where they were. You wouldn't need to ask, where are you, because you could locate them. Unless you could hear them but not know where. Yeah, it was a phrase we rarely had to say. Now, where are you is a very valid question. One of the more common ones. Where do you live? What do you... You know, these sorts of things are valid, common questions because... Oh, Jesus, that was scary. They're valid and they're common questions because you don't know inherently when you hear someone where they are. And yeah, now with this, there's a lot of things that we used to need. You know, they used to be really relevant back in the, you know, the global village days when we used to live in communities of like 100 people, but there were people from outside those communities, etc., that maybe you would fear. But yeah, so a lot of like behaviors we picked up are basically because of that, because we used to not have a large enough sample size to protect against everything. So the idea of like rumors, the idea of like, oh yeah, here's a bad thing that's happening, or here's a bad thing that you've got to watch out for. You know, make sure you lock your doors because there's a guy who comes around and murders you if you don't. Or like, oh yeah, you know, be careful about this or that. There's a lot of like horror stories that spread really easily because when you hear something bad, you just internalize it as it must be true. That must have happened to someone. Oh yeah, my neighbor had someone break into their blah 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 for X reason, Y reason. One of the ones I think is so dumb that spreads so often. My stepmother, I don't know. Someone in my family that is married to someone else that is arguably related to me. They posted something along the lines of like, don't flash your lights. Or when you see someone flash their lights at you, you know, there's like a common indicating thing that people do. Don't flash back because that's a gang sign. People murder the first person to do it to them. And it's like, one, gangs aren't looking for indiscriminate people to murder. That's not how gangs operate. It would be very, very bad. You know, that's not what gangs are or how they operate or anything like that. But two, that is a driving rule. Even if that was a real common thing, it's like, it's a stupid precaution against the thing that's not really happening. More people will be injured by you not flashing your lights when you're meant to, you know, legally speaking. But because someone hears about it and the horror story, the fear of what if is way more in their brain than the, oh yeah, that's a real thing. And this is why negative stereotypes pass of things. I know there's a billion examples, like I know gypsies in the UK. Like it's you know, every single person in the UK I've ever met, like even the most like defending of people's, like everyone's like, oh yeah, those people, they came to my town, and then they'll talk about something that they might have done, like scooters go missing when they come by, or like children's bikes go missing and they just steal. People have all these anecdotes that they have in their mind, and you hear about them, they're like, yep, that must be true. Like in where I live, people are just terrified of them all the time. Something is melting these windows, but specifically them, and it's got to be light level related. I can't work out why, but I guess I don't have windows there. I could place fence posts or something, but whatever. Life is hard. You see my struggle now, I hope. But yeah, so there was a time in our like evolutionary history where we needed to assume that bad things were true. You know, I guess assume guilt until proven innocent. There was a time where that made sense. That's why gossip exists, so we can punish rather than, you know, so that you can't just do a bad thing to someone, break their trust, screw them over, and get away with it, and then do it again to the next person. We need to have a system that prevents you from doing that. It seems, you know, like that's pretty logical, right? And the easiest system that we invented was just like, oh yeah, we are more susceptible to believing stuff, even when it's not true. You can just make up rumors, and people be like, ooh, and that's how made up rumors spread. Fun fact, isn't it all coming beautifully together now? But like, yeah, a random made up rumor will spread because people love the gossip that comes along with it, and it's a thing we needed along with shaming, right? Like people, you know, someone did a bad thing, shame, ding ding ding, shame, ding ding ding. This is what you see all the time on Twitter. Like I find Twitter to be the most disgusting social media that exists, that I use, because I mean, you can follow who you want, you don't have to see this, but like everyone joins in on it like it's actually a useful thing, and it's not them just enjoying shaming people. They're like, this is a really valuable thing we're doing as a community, bringing attention to all these bad people out there, when really it's just like, this person said a word wrong, this person, you know, I can't believe them, they had an opinion that deviated from the herd, go get them, crowd. It's a thing you see all the time, and it made sense to shame people at one point when, you know, being shameless would have a huge benefit over the rest of the herd. But at this point, we're in a time in society where we don't need these social mechanisms anymore. But some people hold on to them because they're fun. And that's why, long story short, I try not to give myself too many labels, because they are used against you, not for you, more than they're used for you. And we all assume in our brains the worst bits about any stereotype are true, whereas the positive bits, you might hear a thing or two about them, but it's much rarer. Positivity spreads so much less than negativity does, and that's why, I don't know, I have a video about why Notch is sad with one day Minecraft. That's doing much better than a video I'm about to release about how Notch loves watching Minecraft videos. You know, it's really wholesome. Wholesome is something people enjoy feeling, but they don't enjoy sharing it. They don't enjoy giving that feeling to other people. Whereas it's really cool to, you know, share, you know, to shame, to do these sorts of things. And it's one of those things I think about a lot. It's like, what is the solution to that? And the real answer is there's not like an easy solution, sadly. But it is something I think about a lot. And it's something I want to share with all of you. Personality is the thing that gets people interested. And personality is the one way, being known as a personality as opposed to just a thing, is the one way to avoid all of that. Like, I feel like someday, being a YouTuber who said 10 years worth of stuff, someday someone could take anything I've said and make it into a scandal. But, you know, like, because, you know, like, you say a lot of things. To every single human being on Earth, something I've said is offensive to them at some point. But when you take a balanced human being, you realize that's a small part of them. On the internet, we're encouraged to dehumanize people because we take them as their labels. And that's why I don't really like them as things. The more we judge people as people, the better we are as, the better we tend to be. And the more we judge people as weird objects, in my opinion, the worse we tend to be. So, long story short, to cut this tale down a little bit, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think sharing all these personal things, what I've been thinking about, what's going on in my life, is something I enjoy doing, partially because I think some people want to hear about it, partially because I think it's a good way to remind you that if I make a mistake, it's not because I'm a bad person or a lazy person or this. There are things that go on in my life as well as everyone else's. Who would have thought it? And then partially because it's the only easy way to avoid the scariest and biggest of mishaps that happens all the time. That is that the world can come down very strongly against you one day, and you don't have any real control about when. But that shouldn't be a thing that we do. And if currently you're the sort of person who gets involved in that, maybe be cautious about it. Maybe that's a thing that you should be like, maybe it's not so good, or maybe double down. Maybe me telling you you're wrong is all you need to believe that actually you're so right. I don't know for sure. This is a thing that's been on my mind a lot, and I wanted to share with all of you. But leaving that off to the side, because I totally agree, and maybe I've given some. Maybe the thoughts I've shared have been interesting to some of you in some way in that way. But just to kind of finish up what I've been up to, I need to go get a bunch more packed ice, by the way. So we're gonna go bring this Netherrack chest back to the overworld. By the way, look at this. Oh yeah, it's an icy fortress. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? So yeah, we're gonna go take this back to the overworld, and we're gonna get some ice in exchange. So to finish up, because the segment I always do in the Let's Play, I try never to miss it. What have I been up to in the past week? I guess it sounds stupid, but I try to think about my life like it's a process, like it's a flow chart, because every decision you make in your life individually Individual decisions are really easy to mess up. The decision whether I should go back to bed or wake up, the objective correct decision for your life is you should wake up right now, you should start doing things. The objective correct decision for that moment is you should go back to bed. It feels real good. Your brain likes sleep, at least mine does. If your brain doesn't like sleep, then sorry for you, friendo. But in the long run, it's I try to think about things as processes, as a series of things that are happening, and I've had to rebuild a lot of mine to be okay, I've been trying to find, I'll be frank about it, I've been trying to find new things that are super fun, that are different forms of content that are better than before, and that hopefully I've also been spending a lot more time on the marketing and things, being we need solid ideas for every big video, for instance, I'm working on a big project video about this ice thing you're seeing me make right now. Every grand big video of that nature probably, not definitely, but to me, seems like it should probably have, it probably needs to have a good idea in mind, a good either thumbnail or title or something that I know will intrigue people who haven't heard about this yet. I have creepers continuously spawning over here, by the way. It's a real problem. Chill, guys. I guess I should just light that area up. Put some lighting in here. Would make a lot of sense to do that, wouldn't it? But, not doing things that make a lot of sense. Welcome to the IVX Toycat channel. But yeah, no, so the past week has been a lot of, reconstructing, deconstructing. And that doesn't make any sense to anyone, so to be more straightforward about it, I guess, yeah, I've been spending a lot more time doing the stuff behind the scenes, and I guess planning out things as well. I hate planning because I've always had this as people who like to-do lists. I love filling out a to-do list, but I always think to myself, the time I spend making a to-do list, do you know what I could just do? I could just do a thing instead. My to-do list would be 1 item shorter if I didn't have to make a to-do list. Also, is making the to-do list an item on the to-do list? I guess I could do that as a clever way to trick myself, but now it's 2 items longer, not 1 item longer, and like, man, you know, this is sure adding complexity to something that doesn't need it. And you can see how that thinking gets very big, very quick, very fast. But, yeah, this is going to take me a long time to move, isn't it? You know, I'll save you the pain of me moving Netherrack by hand. You know, we're very quickly running out of packed ice. I might have to go on like another iceberg destruction bent at some point if I'm going to actually get this whole thing done. Because this is just covering the parts that we've built. We have to build entirely new sections and like get more snow cover. You know, I think we might need to go shovel up some snow for a bit. I think that genuinely is a task we're going to have to go do. You know what, you want to join me while we get it going a little bit? Let's give it a look. Oh, it's over here. Yeah, you know what? Let's give that a little bit of a go. Let's make a new diamond shovel. Is my current one worth anything, actually? Fortune free on breaking. You know what? We won't make a new shovel. I'll continue to use my existing one. And I'll make a new one just because I know it will break very shortly. And, you know, let's be prepared for that. But yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to go get ourselves some snow. Because I also need some snow blocks. And, like, I kind of want to clear out that old biome perfectly. So let's go ahead. Let's do a little bit of that. And I'll just talk about everything in my past week real briefly. By the way, a cool side benefit of this entire thing is hopefully while we work on all of this, we're going to get a lot of wither skeletons, which I need separately, because I need to defeat the wither a lot of times to, you know, make a lot of beacons. Making a lot of beacons is arguably optional, but not in my opinion. Also, I need to extend this Nether portal. Been meaning to do it forever. Haven't done it yet, but I mean, you know, it's a big project, and that's what I've been doing mostly in this past week, actually. As far as, like, Minecraft things go, the biggest thing I have been working on has genuinely been working on the Nether, like placing the blocks, doing the things. It's been kind of fun. I've actually, that's, you know, just again, I don't mind being entirely honest with everything here. That's actually where I listen to a lot of the climbing videos and watch them, because you know, I'd be listening to like a podcast or something while that goes on in the background. I think I always am like a big advocate for, even though it's probably bad for my thing, is like, you know, listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos while you play Minecraft. It's pretty good. Also, yeah, we really are like out of packed ice. These were like partially full last time we came through here, and now you see why I need to shovel up some snow by myself. So yeah, anyway, while we collect snowballs in a very slow and efficient way, allow me to kind of just very briefly go over, because I need these for the end. You can actually place snowballs and snow blocks in the end, as counterintuitive as that is. I did the test and I thought for sure it wouldn't work, and then I was like, huh, I guess they don't melt. Guess I can make a snowy part of my end, eh? But yeah, basically over the past week I've been trying to make I've been trying to realize, like, you know what? Every time I plan a week, I feel really good about it. I feel motivated. I feel like life is going forwards, because any individual decision can push life forwards and backwards. And it's really easy to get stuck in the loop of, oh, I'm doing really badly. You know, might as well give up. You know, like, things are going so badly. How much worse can they get? But how much worse can something get is like a terrible line of logic to live life by. I'm sure I don't need to explain that to anyone. But it's something that, like, genuinely hits my brain. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's just like, well, everything's bad, you know, might as well do something I enjoy at least, and, you know, goof off, and then I feel even worse. But yeah, basically, also, should I just start destroying this even further down? Like, remove some of the packed ice? I kind of want to. It'd be an easy way to get some packed ice, wouldn't it? But, yeah, so a thing that I've been, you're kind of stuck on is, like, trying to keep everything going, like, week by week. Like, last week I had a big week of, like, oh yeah, I'm going to go on every social engagement I come up with. This week is funnily the exact opposite, because it's like, oh yeah, I've got to prepare. I'm going to America. I'm very excited. There's a lot of things I want to do. And as a result, I need to prepare a few videos, you know, for the transition, like You know, you've seen some of them already. There's a brand new server that I think is going out this weekend, last weekend, as you're watching this. Wow, it's out right now. Go watch it. There's a lot of like things like that that are like, oh yeah, we got to do those. Like, oh yeah, want to do another server project for then. Better get that done. There's a lot of stuff that I have to be focusing way more on there. For it's like, okay, I'm going to do slightly less socially wise, but like that to me isn't a contradiction. That like last week I decided to do less video stuff to try and be more social with things, and hope that helped with, you know, my idea process and the pipeline or whatever else. And then I'm doing the exact opposite, like I'm cutting those down to do more work stuff. But to me, it's like, actually, I think that's a good life balance. Like every week, focusing on something different is a really good way to do things. You know, maybe I'm dumb, maybe that's wrong. But it made me come to a realization that like everyone has to define what their time frame in life is. Some people are working towards a lifetime of a thing, and personally, I'd love to have a lifetime where I can do what I enjoy. You know, a la, you know, talking about things that I'm passionate about, informing the world via YouTube. Because you know, the education side of YouTube is the thing I get most passionate about. You know, sharing the things that I hope can improve someone's knowledge or education or, you know, life experiences as a result of that knowledge and education. Those are the things I'm most passionate about, but, you know, on the surface. And that's what, like, this YouTube thing allows me to do in some extent. So it's like, oh, yeah, so I can work towards that, but the individual step is really hard. And maybe for some life goals, it's obvious what the individual step should be. If you want to be the world's strongest man, the individual step is, like, work out your lazy monster. But when we're talking about... Did I actually craft those? We did. When you're talking about something that's a lot more fidgety, or even if you have a goal that isn't so clearly defined, because I think in the same way you shouldn't define yourself with a label, you shouldn't define yourself by a goal. You shouldn't have a single thing in your life, because life is a complex myriad of lots of different things. And, you know, it can be easy to define yourself temporarily as a thing to keep yourself going towards it, but no one can ever be one thing. I know a good example would be like what's his name? Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was a world-class bodybuilder, and then he became a world-class actor. I don't know if he was world-class. He had an accent that's pretty strong, but that's like distinctive, so maybe that's a good thing, you could argue. But like world-class that, then became a world-class you know, actor, then became a politician that actually was governor of, you know, the fifth or sixth or seventh largest economy in the world, depending on who's counting. But like, you know, being able to do all those things in a thing in a lifetime is only possible if you don't define yourself. If he defined himself as a bodybuilder, then he wouldn't be a very good actor or politician or anything else like that. And yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, when you realize that even like a normal life, the most average life you can imagine, like being a used car salesman that has two daughters that he really loves, and you know, like a happy marriage, and also you know, doesn't want to die at age 50. It's like, so health is a goal, family time is a goal, and you know, selling used cars also got to be a goal. That's three things in like the most boring life you can imagine, right? At least for me. Sorry if you're a used car salesman watching this video. You know, I'm sure it's real great. Personally, if I was going to sell cars, I think I'd enjoy selling used... No, actually, I think I'd feel like a rip-off merchant selling used cars more, because you have to kind of, like, downplay the usedness. If you're selling new cars, you can be passionate and enthusiastic and probably tell the truth all the time. I imagine, you know, there's a reason used car salesmen have, like, a dodgy reputation, but it makes sense when you think about it, because you're trying to convince people that, you know, you're trying to make them feel better about something they don't feel good about, and the easiest way to do that is to lie. You know what? Do you not feel confident about your hair or your face or your body? That's probably most things. All of you watching right now statistically feel some amount of doubt about one of those things. You look great. That's a lie. You look awful. You know, you're watching a Minecraft video, maybe in bed, maybe, you know, you look rough right now, but you can look good. That's what under some circumstances, that thing you're insecure about looks wonderful. But you know, that's not what you want to hear. You want to hear it looks wonderful. You go gal, or guy, or person, or anthropomorphic cat, whatever you are. But like that's That's a lie, but we don't feel bad about that because there's no financial profit. Wait, there is financial motive. If you feel good when I compliment you, you'll watch more of my videos. So am I not just a used car salesman for telling you what you want to hear? And that's the, I don't know. Why am I defending used car salesmen? This is, you know, if someone described to me that I'd be a YouTuber 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed them. And if they described it like, oh yeah, you defend used car salesmen from the vicious, unfair reputation they have, I'd be like, well, you know, my life is weird. Isn't that interesting? But yeah, anyway, I think defining yourself with a goal temporarily is good. Defining it forever is not good. And I've kind of decided, like, everyone needs a time frame in their life. Mine is like a week. And my past week has therefore been amazing. And it's kind of cool because the week makes a lot of sense because I have like these weekly recaps as what's going on. You can see when things are going well, when things aren't going well. And I admit it every time it's happening. It's like, oh yeah, things aren't good now, but I know they'll be better. Like I've had the span of like 400 weeks or whatever it is to realize that things go up and then things come down. You need to have things that are the same across all of that, but you are always changing, you're always getting better, and hopefully the people around you are getting better and stuff like that too, becoming more, I don't know, hopefully you're building a thing around you, or if you don't want to build a thing around you, then hopefully that's getting better. But I think a week basis is good for me, maybe a month basis is good for you, maybe a season, a year, a decade, whatever it is, depends on the goal, depends on the thing. But like, breaking something up into achievable steps sounds so dumb, but every time I do it, it feels good. And so yeah, what have I been up to this past week? Playing a lot of Minecraft, making a lot of videos that I really am passionate about the end result of. Working a lot more on the second channel. I don't promote it, so I'm not even going to say the name right here. You know, there's not. Maybe I'm making up the fact there's a second channel right now. You wouldn't know for sure, but yeah, I've been really enjoying seeing the progress on that. Like having a second project is always a good thing to do because there's only so much you can ever do for a particular project, and being able to move from one to the other, really good idea. So that's been good for me. I've been enjoying that, and yeah, I've also been cooking a little bit more in the last week because I just, you know, I want to eat healthily before I go to America. Let's be real, you know, America love the food, you know, my body doesn't though. So yeah, you counterbalance that. I always lose some weight before I go to America to counteract the fact that I'm gonna be eating Little Caesars and making a video, and like it's, you know, that all the rough bad decisions are gonna make my body. I've got to make up for them by making good decisions now, because you can't. The guiding force behind everything I'm saying right now, the thing that's always like felt right to me is balance. Everything needs to be balanced. You can't have good without evil. We need a little bit of evil to create the good. We need a little bit of good to create the evil, you'd even argue. You need to have opposing forces for anything to function in the world, correctly at least. And I think that's not just on a worldwide level, I think that's on a personal level. So yeah, balance. I am not an anything. I am just a person, plays games, enjoys teaching people things. And I don't know if this video would have taught you anything, but I hope it did. I hope that something I've said somewhere has improved your day a little bit at some point in the past or future, or in the past or present. And if it hasn't, then I hope it does so in the future. See, sometimes I say things that are almost going to be really slick, and then I mess them up entirely. But I kind of like these Let's Plays because it's one take. So if we say, well, I mean, this isn't one take. There's a few cuts here and there. But yeah, a lot of people like it for that reason. It's just talking about stuff. And sometimes, you know, a beautiful thought is ruined by a terrible execution. But, you know, isn't that life in its own little way? I think you'll find it is. So thank you very much for watching today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it, at least a little bit, because I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.